Oh, hello everyone. I'm sorry I'm like 3 minutes late. Oh, and I'm wearing my brand new glasses. Good morning. I'm gonna be 50 next year and my eyesight is going. Okay, my eyesight's been long gone actually, but now it's going for everything because I'm spending so much time on the computer. I am just like okay, the reason why I was late is because I was watching the Kentucky Attorney General's press conference on the Breonna Taylor decision. And this country is so fucking broken. It's really hard to even put words at this point to how we could possibly get out of this. So I want to explain to you basically what the charges are. So 2 of the officers involved in murdering Breonna Taylor in her bed are not being charged with anything at all. The third one, who fired the kill shot, is being charged with wanton endangerment. Wanton endangerment is what you get charged with when you shoot your gun into the air. Wanton endangerment is what you get charged with when, you're shooting off fireworks in your backyard and somebody ends up getting like accidentally hurt. The thing about this that is just like a punch to the gut, in addition to the fact that it is just another sign of the ever omnipresent racism in the justice system in this country, or the non-justice system in this country, as it may be, is that they are charging him with wanton endangerment for firing his gun into neighboring apartments. They are not even charging him with wanton endangerment for killing Breonna Taylor. Now, we knew that this was going to be bad. There have been signals of this since Friday when they stopped all police from taking any time off, when they, eliminated, any ability for police officers to even take scheduled vacation time in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm beside myself, and again, I shouldn't be shocked, right? I was watching Joy Ann Reid, the fabulous Joy Reid, on MSNBC about 15 minutes after this was announced. And she made the very valid point that, the problem with the criminal justice system in our country, in addition to the just absolute systemic racism at the core of it, is that prosecutors and police are partners. Prosecutors need police officers to convict people of crimes. They know the police officers as their friends and their neighbors and the people that they go to barbecues with. It's not right to have decisions about police violence and police murder being made by the same prosecutors who need those people to convict people who have committed crimes. I mean, prayers up for the safety of everyone in Louisville tonight, because it's not going to be good. All right. We'll have a lot more to say about that in the coming days. I will just tell you that, I've been saying on this broadcast for the better part of the last 4 years that, racism and white supremacy was a national security issue and would be our downfall. And, all we're seeing right now is just the absolute examples of that. Okay. A couple things that we just really need to talk about in the context of the election. And I apologize for the fact that, we're going live right after this is broken. I'm very discombobulated today. I have some thoughts about kind of where we are between now and the election that I want to share toward the end of the broadcast, that feel really important and significant to this community. But let's put a hold on those and just talk for a second about, some other breaking news that took place between Monday, when we were last on the air, and today. So let's see. Romney announced that he would vote for this as yet unidentified Supreme Court nominee that Trump is planning on announcing on Saturday, within minutes of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's services being over. Again, I sympathize with everyone who is saying, we have to stop expecting blood from the stone of the Republican Party in the form of their humanity or their decency. That is all true. I will tell you that I think that there is a strong possibility, assuming that we manage to save this election and therefore save this country, that this strategy is going to backfire on the GOP like nothing that we have seen before. I will tell you that, I missed, I'll just say this. Somebody asked me specifically about Elie Mystal's comments this weekend and yesterday about expanding the Supreme Court. So let me just say this. There's nothing in the Constitution that mandates that the Supreme Court has to be 9 justices. In fact, given that, this is a legitimate perspective, the GOP stole a seat from Barack Obama. Brett Kavanaugh never should have been seated because of all of his ethical violations, not to mention his crimes. There is a strong argument to be made here that 2 Supreme Court seats at least have been stolen. This, by the way, with the hypocrisy of what we are seeing, again, I know historically before the situation with Merrick Garland, we just seated Supreme Court justices whenever a seat came up. That is not the case right now. And the perspective on where we are right now has to be taken in light of what happened in the last 286 days of Barack Obama's term, when Merrick Garland wasn't even brought up for consideration on the floor of the Senate. At this stage of the game, I am not opposed to expanding the Supreme Court. Now, I know that there's a lot of people out there who are like, we should be really worried about this. What happens if the Republicans decide to try it? I'm just going to tell you that it doesn't get any worse than this. We have a situation right now where fundamentally the Republicans are setting up all the mechanisms that they need to steal the election. Okay. They're interfering with the election as it sits right now. They are challenging mail-in and absentee voting in every significant state that matters to them in this election. And now they are trying to stack the Supreme Court in advance of Election Day so that if the election is contested in court, they will have a 6-3 majority of conservative presidential appointed justices that presumably would rule in favor of Trump staying in office. Now, there's a few potential exits for this, okay? If the Supreme Court is expanded before a decision is made on any challenge to the election, we may actually potentially be able to save the country even in that scenario, all right? And there's lots of other things that could be happening that would stop this process in its tracks. I will tell you, I am profoundly disappointed over the weekend that Nancy Pelosi agreed to a budget with Steve Mnuchin. Because apart from the fact that a government shutdown would have prevented the confirmation of a Supreme Court justice, no one should be cutting deals with the GOP at this stage of the game for anything. And I know that puts a lot of government employees in jeopardy. I'm going to say this also. We still don't have another COVID relief bill. I understand that people are suffering. Believe me, I get it. Like, you don't even want to know what things look like behind the scenes at my business right now, okay? But all that said, it's war, right? Like, we're in a situation right now where there is no norm or standard the GOP will not break through in its attempt to maintain its power. So the real question here is whether or not the Democratic leadership recognizes that they're in a fight for the future of our democracy, that they're in a fight for our democracy to survive beyond 2020. I'm not feeling terribly confident right now. I'm going to be really honest with you that they actually get the depth of this, let alone what's going on with Dianne Feinstein. I mean, I'm just not even going to touch that today. We're in a really serious moment. And, they're signaling very much what they're going to do. So let's just talk through that scenario so everybody understands what's about to happen. Okay. People are going to vote on November 3rd in person. Trump is going to try to claim victory on Election Day itself. Last polling showed that about 80% of the registered Democrats in this country are planning to either vote by mail or by absentee ballot. The president is going to try to claim victory on the day of the election so that he can then contest the validity of every mail-in or absentee ballot that is not counted by November 3rd. I'm going to remind you all, there are states in this republic that do not allow by law for absentee or mail-in ballots to be counted until Election Day itself. So this whole thing then leads to the court challenges that we've all come to expect now, I hope, for all the followers of this broadcast, that are going to then eventually land in front of the Supreme Court. So this is like the perfect storm of a scenario for the GOP. Okay. And, y'all should be aware, again, like part of the reason why I talk about all of this is not to be fatalistic about it, but so that you can educate the people you know, the people you love, your friends and neighbors about the fact that this is what's coming. So that when he tries to declare victory on election day itself, we can all understand that that's a lie. There is just such a desperate need for people to understand this right now, because if we get to election day and the vast majority of the general public thinks that Trump declaring victory on election day means that it's over, like we're kind of fucked. What we really need is a mass understanding that any declaration of victory on election day itself or election night or 4 o'clock in the morning the next morning is not going to be the reality of where we are. I am fundamentally not expecting any final result for at least like 2 weeks after this election because of how many ballots have to be counted. There are states over the weekend that determined that any ballot that is dated by election day and received by the 12th of November will be counted. So don't expect there's going to be any kind of like big revelatory thing for like 9 days after the election at least, okay? It's really clear right now that we have to understand what the plan is and also that we consider what it's going to take to stop it. So this is what concerns me about the Democrats. There should be a nonstop filibuster of this nomination, no matter what. And I'm not convinced they're going to do it. Okay, that's part of what's going on with Dianne Feinstein that's really disturbing. There should be a refusal by the Democrats to even sit in a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing. They should be walking out. It would be really nice if the Democrats considered just denying a quorum. They're not going to be able to do that, but they should try it. I will say that the other thing that I'm just really profoundly concerned about here is that the nominees that are on the table here are frightening individuals. It's, everything I said on Monday about the ACA and about Roe versus Wade and everything else, that's all right there. And there's an ACA decision that is yet to be determined before the Supreme Court right now. That's part of the reason why they're doing this. 200,000 Americans are dead and they want to cut off Obamacare at the knees. That, by the way, is also personal for me. So, again, we have serious work to do in terms of educating the public here. And, I do think the Supreme Court should be expanded. I think there's a valid argument for it. I don't have a problem with it. We're never going to get to that kind of like crazy scenario of 100 Supreme Court justices. The idea of getting to 11 or 13 or 15, though, doesn't bother me one bit at this point. Okay. Couple other things that we need to kind of be thinking about here. There are a number of states now where there are really serious concerns about what's called the naked ballot scenario. Pennsylvania is one that we all should be very much concerned about. There was a ruling in Pennsylvania that, so let me explain what the naked ballot situation is. So in Pennsylvania, you have 2 envelopes that you have to complete in order for your mail-in ballot to be valid. If your ballot arrives, so there's an interior envelope and an exterior envelope. If your ballot arrives only in the exterior envelope, your ballot will be thrown out. So one of the things here that we have to also be thinking about is making sure that we are educating the public in various states about the fact that their vote won't count if they don't follow these procedures to the letter. The reason why people are pointing to Pennsylvania so much is because mail-in voting has not been available in Pennsylvania before this election in this format. There are plenty of other states where the double envelope thing has been in play for a number of years. Pennsylvania is not one of them. Now, the reason why this is so significant is because the entire election may turn on Pennsylvania. And I had a conversation fairly recently, I'm not going to tell you how or where, with somebody who is running part of the Biden campaign in Pennsylvania. You all know I'm from Bucks County, Pennsylvania. There is a sort of anecdotal phrase that's thrown around that is basically like, as Bucks County goes, so goes the election. Bucks County is a suburb of Philadelphia. It is a purple jurisdiction. It is where I grew up. It's where my parents live. They're lifelong Democrats. It's where my sister lives. This is a county where Ivanka Trump showed up nonstop in 2016 because they knew how much it mattered. There are a lot of people right now who very firmly believe that if Pennsylvania goes for Trump, we're like screwed. And one of the ways that Pennsylvania could go for Trump is if 40,000 ballots are thrown out in the state because people don't put it in the interior envelope before they stick it in the mail in the exterior envelope next. So it is just really, really, really important that this particular naked ballot issue is out and publicly discussed. Chris Hayes has talked about it already on MSNBC. I retweeted Chris this morning. You can go find that tweet and, share it. That would be super helpful. Even if you think you don't know anybody in Pennsylvania, you never know who's going to retweet it, who does. Again, this is part of our obligation right now to secure the election. All right. We had a question about Biden's visibility. Once again, I'm just going to say this, okay? And, I'm sorry to have to say it in these terms, but if you think Biden hasn't been visible in the last, let's just call it 2 weeks, you're getting your news from shoddy sources. Again, I'm going to point you at Facebook because everybody knows that there is news coming off of Facebook that's like this Biden is hiding in a basement stuff, right? That's straight from the Trump campaign. Okay, Biden is not hiding in his freaking basement. Biden has been on planes all over the country in the last 2 weeks. He's been making appearances in key swing states all over the country in the last 2 weeks. Same story with Kamala Harris. So Biden is not invisible. Biden is only invisible if what you're reading instead is bullshit talking points on Facebook. I mean, again, I just can't lean hard enough into it. And, I just want to say this, I love our audience, all right? You all are amazing people. I know you care so much about the future of this democracy. Those of you who have been with me since January 2017, I know your heart is really in this. And I just can't say it enough. Sharing your family photos on a platform that is feeding you false information is not a good enough excuse. It's not a good enough excuse. You should be getting your information from reliable sources. You should be understanding that psychometric profiles are being built on you as an individual and information is being pushed to you through that platform. That is a lie. Okay, I'm gonna try really hard not to rant. Like I said, I had a really bad day yesterday. That is the end of my rant right now. Please, if you read something on Facebook that sounds like it would benefit the Trump campaign, you need to do some more research. Better yet, get off of Facebook until after the election. Okay? I feel like I have to say that every 3 days right now. But, I'm really serious about it. I see these talking points and I'm like, where are you getting this? Where are you getting it? He was in Wisconsin on Monday talking to people, right? Today, he's out there talking about gun violence. He's doing events with gun violence advocates. Gun violence, gun violence prevention advocates. He's out in the world. So that's that. All right. We had a question about state secession. And, I will just tell you, I'm torn about this now. Many of you know that, I've sort of have toyed and played around with and researched this issue of California seceding, or California and Oregon and Washington seceding, like Cascadia, as they like to call it. There's also been movements to try to secede from New York. I will let you all know that, Sarah Kendzior, who I admire very seriously, very wise, expert on authoritarianism, believes very strongly, for a lot of really valid reasons, that secession and the breaking up of the United States is what Putin wants, because it will eliminate the prospect of any player on the international stage that could challenge him. I have to take that into account when I consider my own views on this, right? It's really key that we consider the fact that in some events on the world stage, that might be seen as a capitulation. I'll also just say, though, that, I sit here in California knowing that we're the 5th biggest economy in the world, that we provide an enormous amount of funding to the federal government, with, not all of the state being left-leaning by far, okay? But with a fundamental blue underlying current, let's just put it that way. We go blue in every election. Even in places like Orange County, we are now represented at the federal level by entirely Democrats. It's hard to not make the argument that we should leave in the event that he's reelected. So I sit in the middle of this, right? And, I'm not going to sit here and say, I recommend one thing or I recommend another. There's a whole series of potential outcomes here that could lead me to reach one conclusion or another. I will just say this, though. In the event that Trump is reelected, kind of all bets are off because we're screwed no matter what. It's going to be the last election ever that will be legitimate in the United States of America. It may very well destroy the republic entirely. So, I hope we don't get to that point. It's like yet another reason why getting out the vote right now is so critically important. Yesterday was National Voter Registration Day. I hope you all asked at least one person whether or not they were registered to vote. I personally did the kind of asshole thing and sent the National Registration Day information out to every parent group that I'm involved with here in my school district. So I hit at least probably 80 families doing that. And that's on top of everything that I do on Twitter every day. So really key that, you do your part on that front. Just because it's not National Voter Registration Day today doesn't mean you shouldn't do it today, but deadlines are approaching very quickly in many states in this country. So you got to make sure this is really our last push at this point to get people registered. All right. Last point for today, which is what I want to talk about. I really fell into, I'm going to be really candid here. I fell into a pit of total despair and terror yesterday afternoon. At one point, we had a really rough day in my house, took the kids to get their flu shots. Everybody was out of sorts after flu shots and wellness visits were done. I lost my temper more than once. Kids went into timeouts for half an hour in their room so mommy could just calm down. It's very hard to live through what we're living through. And it's hard to do that no matter who you are, okay? It's harder for some of us than others. I just want to say this because it feels like it's really necessary right now for us to understand that what we were before this is not coming back, okay? And all of us are going through the grieving of the ideals that perhaps we thought existed in this country. We're living through the loss of a democracy that we thought was at least in part reliable. We're living through a mass death event where 200,000 Americans are now dead and the president won't even acknowledge it. You should go find that footage from what he said before he got on Marine One yesterday. It's horrifying. He will not even acknowledge that 200,000 Americans are dead. And, one of the things that I just want to say here, again, this is because I feel like this community needs permission, all right, is it is okay to just be surviving right now, okay? I want to encourage you to fight for our democracy, right? I want to encourage you to fight to get out the vote. I want to encourage you to not give up and to not quit. And I also want to say that if all you are able to do in the next 6 weeks is do something to get out the vote and scrape by on everything else, that is okay. It's going to get really bad. It's already really bad. You all don't even have any idea what's been happening behind the scenes on my Twitter feed, except for the few little things that I've put out. The bot traffic is insane. The information manipulation is revolting. The targeting of particular people who are out there really trying to create change and get out the vote is obscene. Alyssa Milano had somebody walking around in her backyard with a gun over the weekend, and her neighbor called the police. And within minutes of the neighbor calling the police, the right-wing trolls and bots were targeting Alyssa for having said that we should defund the police and reconstitute the American non-justice system in a better place. Because her neighbor called the police because somebody was in the woods behind her house with a gun. That's how fast this shit is happening now. And that's for people like, Alyssa Milano. And, I was targeted twice now in the last 4 days by right-wing figures. I will just say this, it's going to be really rough for all of us. And, You have to get to a point now of recognizing that the standards to which we have all held ourselves, particularly those of us who are high performing or caregivers or, who are trying to educate children from home, right? God, forgive yourself for not being able to do everything right now, for not being perfect, for making mistakes, for yelling at your kids. I was awake in the middle of the night thinking about this, and I was like, you know what? I made a really big mistake. I've apologized to my kids repeatedly for yelling at them. I have to forgive myself. Like, we're living through an absolutely inhumane time, and it's only going to get worse. So, this is really where I want to just put all of you, okay? Like, if all you do for the next 6 weeks is do something to get out the vote and secure the election and survive, it's okay. All right? You don't have to kind of like start a new business or read 60,000 books or hustle. It's okay to just survive. All right? And for some of us, that's really going to be all that we're able to do, and it's enough. The last thing that I just want to say here about this is this, okay? For those of us who have lived through really significant trauma in our lives, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot on my sobriety journey that many of you know that I've just decided to start in the middle of a pandemic while heading toward the 2020 election, because I always have to do things the hard way. One of the things that I will just tell you is that those of us who have residual trauma, it's really kicked up right now. This is one of the reasons why I've been saying over and over again, please seek help if you need it. Please seek support if you need it. There are so many free online resources right now that we can access. And the other thing I'm just going to say here is this, okay? There is an opportunity in where we find ourselves right now to heal. This nation is in dire need of healing. It is in dire need of dealing with the trauma at the root of the country. And this morning, y'all know one of the things that's saving me right now is my bike, right? I was riding this ride with Alex Toussaint, who many of you know is kind of a very outspoken Black athlete on the Peloton platform. And God, he's fucking brilliant. Just so smart. I get on there and I learn things every time I ride with him through a screen. This morning he got on there and he said, every person who is changing the world right now, who wants to change the world, who wants to make it better for everyone else, we cannot do that if we do not love ourselves. We cannot do that if we do not heal ourselves. We have to be able to understand that the individual is connected to the collective. And when we heal our own wounds and we heal the wounds of our ancestors, when we heal the wounds that we inflicted in our family lines, when we heal the wounds that our families have been carrying around, we heal a country, we heal a world. So the work is not just the work we do out there in the world. I'm going to try really hard not to cry. The work is also the work of healing ourselves. And to the extent that you are able right now to dedicate some time to finding a way of working through your own trauma, you will then be able to lead others through the trauma of what we are experiencing in a way that will not just allow them to survive, but hopefully on the other side of this, to actually participate and be a part of healing the country and healing the world. And that's what we need right now. We need people who are in a position where even if your own healing journey is still underway, God knows mine is going to be lifelong. You're in a place where you are able to show others how to walk that path. Because that's why we're here. At least that's why I think we're all here. All right. So that's kind of some heavy spiritual survival talk for the end of today. Congratulations on 28 years sober. For 6 Degrees Dance. That comment just came up. So much love to all of you. Again, please take care of yourselves. Please take care of one another. Please educate the people in your community, the people in your networks about the issues in Pennsylvania, the issues around the general election. Please make sure you are asking people if they're registered to vote. Ask strangers. I'm not joking any longer, okay? If we can even just, I said this last week, I have 102,000 followers right now on Twitter. If every single one of those people converted one person who has never voted before to voting for Biden in this election, reminder, Trump lost by 77,000 votes in three critical states, right? This community alone could make a massive difference, all right? So much love to all of you. Please take care of yourselves. And I will, talk to all of you tomorrow. I hope this helped. All right, everyone. I'll see you then. Bye.